Hey everybody, welcome to Treasury Tuesday. Hopefully we have another good day for you guys. I'm dropping the agenda in the voice chat right now. Hopefully some other people flow in and we can kind of continue the discussion as always. But I'll go ahead and dive on into it with the recent events and news. So I guess the first thing on the agenda is really just kind of talking through the establishment of a testing wallet. You can see a link there that was posted last week. I think I discussed this last Treasury Tuesday as well as during town hall, but really the intent behind this is really just to allow us to have a sandbox where we can develop new strategies, have a little bit of funding for two of our devs, Paisho and Zubair, who work closely with Ninja as well as our other core infrastructure, to really kind of be on the cutting edge of what kind of strategies and knowing up kind of power we can develop with the Rook protocol. But really, just in addition to that, understanding where we can kind of create more efficiencies, where there may be some bugs, and just some other things. Because right now, a lot of our volume is really just driven by external parties who, again, we don't really have control over. So, this is really just requesting that we have about $600,000 in 4 different stable coins to kind of do some cool stuff with. But again, it'll be full transparent. We'll have a dashboard if this were to be ratified. And again, just really put Destiny in our own hands from a strategy development perspective. Again, I encourage everybody to go out there and make their voices known if they have any questions, concerns about that KIP. Please do so there. But also wanted to kind of maybe pause and see, does anybody else have anything that they'd like to say about whether they support this KIP, have any questions or hesitations about any of its contents?
I just want to say that I support this. What I see the value of this as is, it's outlined pretty well in kind of mission alignment and rationale in the document. But for those that are just hearing about it now, what we get out of this, it is, just invaluable data on strategies, on just regular user transactions. What can be done with a little bit of money that's taking zero directional risk. Has some really cool use cases too. So not only is it going to help us get insight, for improving the protocol internally, yeah, hopefully it'll surface stuff that will be things that we can talk about externally as well. Create some cool strategies for folks looking for that kind of content. Um, I think that between Zubair and Pi Show, they're going to come up with some cool stuff to do with this, and so I'm really excited to see this kind of come to the table here.
Yeah, appreciate that. And one thing I will say is, this will be in a multi-sig, so it's really not any different from being in the treasury, except for who the signers are. But again, Pi is a signer on the labs budget or the labs multi-sig. Zubair is a full-time contributor. Dietz is also on the multi-sig and is obviously a multi-sig signer for both the treasury and the lab. So again, these are trusted parties here. Nothing really kind of new on that front. But really, I think the most exciting thing is once we have more data, we can really start marketing it really effectively. And I think that's really where the holy grail is going to be. We don't know where the end results are going to end up shaking up. But again, just having more data can't hurt really in the end. So I'm excited to see where this one goes if it goes through. Moving on, unless anybody else has anything to say on that one, the Mabel finance withdrawal. So I guess this morning or last night and this morning, basically pulled an all-nighter trying to assess when funds would be repaid from Bastion. Because again, before we can withdraw our funds, there needs to be sufficient capital in those pools, and so trying to time that correctly is a very difficult process. So we were not able to kind of pool our funds today. I think almost without a certainty that Bastion made a deal with some other people. I think basically they probably got money to give information about when they would be paying. So kind of a hard sell, but then there were some other mechanics that we weren't aware of from the protocol side that they had not disclosed that kind of made it a little bit tougher. But moving forward, we still don't really feel like near term there's a ton of risk of a loss of funds or anything. But again, we want to mitigate as much as possible. And kind of seeing the behind the scenes mechanics of this definitely made us, at least my personal opinion, realize that I do not want to be in Maple Finance. So we will be continuing to do that and monitoring when the next repayments will be. But we do have some claimable Maple tokens that hopefully tomorrow we will claim and then subsequently swap into stable coins, which is provided through this KIP that we had originally ratified to withdraw the funds and sell all the earnings associated with it. Um, and stop me if anybody has any comments there, but just know that that is going to be probably on the agenda for a while until we kind of fully release our funds there. The Q3 Labs budget request, I think I alluded to this on Friday, but Hazard and I, as well as the rest of the team directors, will be kind of taking a step back instead of just kind of how we have been doing, the budgeting before. I think we're going to be kind of adopting, similar to what I had in, I want to say like KIP 15 or something like that, when I had my mission-based budgeting KIP. Even though that has not been ratified, we will be kind of more haphazardly, or not haphazardly, but informally adopting the terms that are outlined in there and really trying to develop a strategic plan, really get more granular with what are those objectives within that plan, and then tie our financial situation and our budget to that. And so, in order to do that, we need to kind of take a little bit of a slower process by just understanding from the team's lead's perspective what their goals, strategies, and resources to accomplish those are, kind of then putting all of those ideas together as in looking at at the whole organization and saying, okay, how does this make sense? Are there ways that we can share resources, or are there things that we need to kind of cut to maximize where the highest priority needs are? So that will be taking a little bit of time, but hopefully we will be kind of pushing forward with that very soon, and I'm kind of excited to see where that end product shakes out. The optimism proposal, again, I mentioned this a couple times, don't have a lot to say, but this is basically trying to get some funding from them that they are offering to protocols to spur some activity. So there's a link there, go and support that. I guess some more other related news that I guess more externally facing news. Aave announced that they will be releasing a stablecoin. I think that's really exciting. I don't have a lot of details on that. I haven't done too much research, but I think it's just really interesting, maybe exciting, maybe scary. I think we all hear when people start stablecoins, we kind of take a step back and be like, oh no, this is gonna be another UST scenario. But it sounds like it'll be collateralized by a lot of what they have deposited with them. So it seems like a pretty good symbiotic fit for them to kind of pursue. But yeah, I guess we will see how that develops. And if anybody has anything that they have insider knowledge on, or if they've researched this really thoroughly, would love to kind of hear any thoughts you may have about this. Otherwise, I guess moving on, Aztec Connect launch, we will be trying to get them to come on. I'm really interested to see. I think I'm still researching what this is, but I believe it's just another layer two that is more privacy focused. I think they've described it as more like kind of like a VPN type solution where you can kind of really just increase the level of privacy that you have with how you interact with DeFi. So really excited to see how this one shakes out, as well as and how it interacts with other layer two solutions out there. But hopefully we'll be getting a layer two panel up soon, because I know Western Breeze have been looking and trying to push forward on this front to kind of see what we can do there to have another AMA. And then I guess the last thing is that there was a Binance incorrectly reporting a Uni V3 exploit. You can kind of see the link there. Nothing too material to talk, but basically kind of almost like a phishing campaign. I think what I saw, maybe not. I didn't add this there, but maybe whoever added this, do you gotta add some context to this?
Yeah, I just it's so important that you're really checking your sources, even when they're kind of trusted sources. Like we always talk about trustlessness and things like that. And then kind of a celebrity, Binance, CZ tweets something, and people are like, "Oh my God, Uniswap is exploitable now, and it's vulnerable." And you're like, "No, their algorithm for reading transactions just thought it was fishy and sent something out." So it's like that constant reminder to be safe with your stuff, but also don't just trust a tweet, even if the person's smart.
Yeah, I have definitely been waking up to that more and more, and obviously I'm always pretty cautious about how I move and interact in the space, but like especially with like social media, like I remember there was like that 3AC update that popped up on Twitter, and I know I joined thinking it was like actually gonna be a real update, and got rickrolled. So there's a tons of these kind of things popping up, and I'm sure it will not slow down. If anything, it'll just accelerate. So just be cautious out there. I think we already knew that, but probably even more so now in a bear market when people are desperate and lots of different techniques that are being developed to kind of take your money. So that's a good ad there. Does anybody else have anything that's newsworthy or event worthy they'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I have one last thing here. This last last night and the end of the last CVX gauge vote was the end of our commitment with Alchemix. I am still in contact with their team. We've talked about maybe a proposal to do another arrangement like we had. But as of now, we will most likely be going back to our status quo of just grabbing liquid coins that we will then turn into stables or ETH for the Treasury. But I think that as we still have a number of weeks still on our locking period, a short-term strategy would be pretty good to implement. I would probably say that because of the uncertainty in the market, I wouldn't want to comment on the directional bet of what we would do after we unlock. But looking at kind of let's call it probably 3+ rounds that we have left, we can talk about an easy short-term strategy of what to do with votes and what to do with the tokens we receive.
Well, thanks. That's a good ad there, Deets. I went ahead and I'm just kind of making note that we'll kind of add CVX plan as part of our initiative collaboration discussion. Just trying to come up with a more formal plan on how we want to, treat our asset as it unlocks, and as well as some of the other assets that we've earned through bribe revenues there. And maybe that's a good segue into. I know we have the Alchemix, and obviously we plan on holding that for a bit potentially. But I know we also had conversations with their team from the Treasury deployment side. Starfire, I know you feel like crap. You may not be able to talk, so if not, feel free to just stay quiet. But if you have anything to add from your discussions with Alchemix, feel free here.
Nothing in particular to add. He gave us or the guy from Alchemix gave us some good information, and they just opened up their ST-ETH and RETH vaults, which they've hard capped, but they did say that they'd be willing to open that up for us to deposit. So that's something that we just need to kind of explore deeper and kind of see if that's something we want to do for the Treasury.
Got it. Good stuff there. Good stuff there. Yeah, definitely would love to learn more about that team and see what we can do together. Okay, cool. Well, I think that was it for the events and news section. I guess moving into the open floor section. As always, if you have any dashboard requests, there's a link there. Q2 report, we'll get into details, but we always want to be kind of iterating on this process and improving what we have in that report from a transparency and just data perspective. So if you have any general thoughts, comments on how we can improve it, or just additions or deletions from what you see in there, would still love to kind of get those, and you can feel free to DM me directly if you want to speak up here. Another thing I want to discuss was, the Treasury charter. I know Jason, I think, just reviewed. I need to get back into that and address that, but I think it's getting closer to the finish line. But what I wanted to kind of discuss here was, how do we see this from a governance perspective? Do we see this as something that we feel should go through general governance and be approved and kind of be that guiding light? Or do we see it as kind of like this guiding light that doesn't need to go through governance because it doesn't have anything too explicit? It's more just like core principles we abide by. But just want to get everybody's thoughts on whether that needed to kind of proceed through governance to really kind of be something that we can truly reference as a community and as part of our processes on the Treasury side. Does anybody have any strong thoughts about that?
I would just say that having it go through governance does feel like a solid stamp of approval. It's something that will I would say make it really easy for us to point to and say, okay, this is why we're making these decisions, and this is, and these principles are things that we use to guide that decision making. I think that having that be officially verified through governance, um, it is already on its way happening, with the conversations we have now. But I think that just having it go through the regular process like any KIP, would feel like it would give kind of real authority to making sure we uphold, these principles.
I'll just echo that as well. I think it should go through governance just to, like Date's saying, get that final stamp of approval, make sure that token holders, right, don't object to that, and kind of everyone's on the same page that this is our guiding light, our North Star, whatever that everyone agrees that we're going towards.
I was just going to second it too. I think going through governance is a great way to create and demonstrate community alignment, which, as Dietz said, can impact all future conversations.
Cool. Well, I appreciate all the input, and yeah, I think that's where I was kind of leaning because, I saw a situation where we go down a path, and some proposal references, the treasure charter, and somebody's like, I don't really agree with the contents in there. And it's like, well, it was never approved through governance, and so what actually gives that power? So, I do think that that's probably the best approach, but just wanted to kind of see what other people thought as well. So I'm glad. I think we're all on the same page there. Okay. Anybody else that they like have anything they want to discuss from the open floor perspective? Anything that they'd like to have on the agenda for next week, or any ideas to pursue here?
Yeah, actually, because I still haven't really learned enough about Rook, but I noticed that I still don't see a bot posting the Treasury info in the server. And I had started something in one of the channels because I don't have enough understanding of what data is being presented. Because from my perspective, it seems like a really easy thing unless you're tied to running your own bot from scratch on your own server, which, depending on how much you update it, might make the most sense. But if it's not being updated frequently, I see it like as something that, somebody knowing of the right tools could put together literally in a couple hours. And since it seems like people have an interest in having it, you know, I was just exploring the possibility of offering that to the community, not necessarily even for an exchange, but just because it's useful and I don't think it would take very much time.
Hey, I really appreciate you bringing that up, and this is something that we actually hadn't announced to everyone, but we have something that's in like the very final stages of development. That's I just dropped a quick preview in voice chat. It's something that will not only have a revolving ticker on the right side, it'll be something that you will be able to call, easy, quick commands like exclamation point treasury, and it will spit out a report like this that will pull through all of our assets. And it can even spit out individual token prices. It has X Rook and staking statistics built into it. So all of this is coming out as well. There's always the reference of the Dune dashboard that Stubbs has built as well, which I believe is in our links. But I do appreciate you bringing it up because it is important for us to have information present for everybody and easily accessible.
Yeah, I think you were talking more about the inflows and like the P&L side of the activities versus financial positions, if I believe. But yeah, I think that what Deets shared right there should help from the financial position side. And then I posted the Rook protocol dashboard that our master Stubbs has developed. That should give you all the information you need and probably a little bit more. And then we also have I'll post the full ecosystem one. That may even have some other details. So that's probably a good place to kind of look for some of those metrics that you may be kind of craving.
If you're looking for transactions in and out of the Treasury or the labs budget, we can easily look into like a Zapier automated thing that just as soon as there's a transaction, it can post in one of our channels here, just a message. Is that more what you were looking for?
To be frank, I personally wasn't looking for anything, but what I noticed is, there was the UI face of it in the Discord. So what I'm getting now, and this is me owning like my ignorance, that there was actually a lot more to it where rolling your own bot from scratch makes more sense. And like I said, even just updating a ticker in the Discord, depending on how near real time you want to be, it makes a lot of sense. So, it wasn't about my personal desires to get information. It was just saying, like, hey, if this is important, I know that I could do something that would be useful to the community, but I didn't even have an idea of the full scope of what it was about. Although some of that I probably could also have done in not too much time, it definitely would have started taking probably more time than I would have wanted to give gratis. So it's all perfect. I was just calling it out because I noticed that, that bot presentation at the top of the server on the right still wasn't there, and the conversation had been dropped with me. Not that it was
Sure.
dropped altogether.
Right. Yeah. And I see how, there could have been better public communication about that for sure.
Gotcha. Well, I did that. Did I address everything that you wanted? And again, I know you weren't necessarily looking for
Oh,
anything
completely.
particularly, but just making sure.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, great comments there. Um, yeah, I guess maybe just general theme of information request or just anything in general. Again, if there's anything in particular that we want to see from metric standpoint, the protocol dashboard, or sorry, just the dashboard that Stubbs can create, just feel free to use that request link. Any bots that you think would be valuable to develop, like we can definitely work through that from the lab side. So if there's anything like that, feel free to shoot me a DM, Stubbs DM, or Dietz, or really anybody you feel comfortable talking with. But we definitely want to increase transparency in every way we can. Okay, cool. So I think does anybody else have anything from an open floor perspective? No. Cool. Well, I guess moving on to the initiative collaboration discussion section. So I guess Bancorp proposal is now down here. So I know Starfire will be pushing that out the door over the coming days, and same with the non-core asset discretion proposal. Starfire, did you have anything you wanted to say there? And again, I know you're feeling sick, so I apologize.
Um, I would just, encourage everyone to take a moment to read them. The Bancor one is pretty straightforward. We're just trying to migrate our funds to V3 and then proceed with polling our positions from the platform. And then the non-core asset management, um, in essence, is just kind of creating a framework for. It would encapsulate kind of like the Vodium bribes, which doesn't necessarily have a formal framework right now, but it also allows us to kind of like capture any random airdrops we can get and just allow the team to rebalance those positions into core assets like stables and ETH and Rook. But again, yeah, just if anyone's interested, take a moment to read and send me any comments or any suggestions that you guys have.
Yeah, maybe one thing to highlight here is this gives the Treasury team basically discretion to make moves for assets whose value is under 100,000 US dollars. So pretty immaterial in the grand scheme of things. We don't have too many of those situations outside of what we have with CVX, but we've been liquidating those anyways. Now we just kind of need to formalize what that process is and who has control over those. Um, and then also just kind of making sure that we're not clogging up general governance is kind of another part of this as well. So this should be a nice little addition to just our overall infrastructure and processes. Jason, do you have anything you want to say just from a governance perspective about just giving discretion to a team over this function?
No, I mean, I think this is a perfect use of thinking about what kinds of powers we want to delegate, and how we bound those and what they specifically are. And I think this is a really well articulated proposal in that respect. So I think it's a good example for going forward how we should think about these things.
Yeah, and I don't think this is like when we give these Treasury team discretion to do it. I don't think it's going to be like me, Stubbs, Starfire. We sit in our DMs and we say let's sell it, and then we just sell it, right? I think it's one of those things we're going to actively communicate, in the open, in these kind of settings through town halls, Treasury Tuesdays, even maybe governance workshops, just to kind of get what other people think. So if maybe selling this asset is not something everybody wants to do for whatever reason, then we can kind of have more active discussions. But we still have the ability to not have to worry about clogging up governance, writing a formal proposal, really kind of taking away bandwidth that maybe is for something that's relatively immaterial. So I'm excited to have this one kind of embedded into our infrastructure. Um, I think Deets sent me a message, Starfire, that the non-core asset proposal is blocked. So if you could open up access publicly, that'd be good if you're comfortable with that.
Oh, yeah, that's my bad.
No worries. No worries. Okay, cool. And then I guess the last thing, unless anybody else has any comments, is just kind of getting into just kind of getting updates on the research side from our stablecoin deployment. Again, I think this is another situation where we've just been so inundated with other things that we haven't pushed the pedal to the metal on this front. But before we get into that, does anybody else have anything that they'd like to discuss that's maybe unrelated to our stablecoin deployment?
Matt, maybe just a quick update for folks that just because we haven't really discussed it yet. Looking at our ETH deployment, has there been anything that you've seen that would impact any strategy on timing of deploying ETH?
No, I mean, I guess a big thing that was, kind of a headliner before was the STETH. Again, not the right word, but PEG. I'm just going to call it. Um, and that has that delta between the ETH and STETH has dropped a little bit. And then I know we've also seen the same thing. We've seen a PEG loss again, not the right terminology, with SETH2, which is Stakewise product. Again, that's nothing about the fundamental asset being at higher risk. It's just market forces at work, really. So nothing from a headline story that's really any impact. I know Starfire has been developing kind of just some different scenarios and strategies that we can implement. So hopefully next week we start actually trying to make moves and start actually deploying some of these funds. I don't think that by any means we will just do any kind of bulk sum deployment. I think we'll kind of do it systematically and responsibly. But again, we'll try to work to the best we can with all those teams to kind of market. I know Stakewise is we'll want some optics and communications around it. I know Rocket Pool, we've been in touch with them about putting some comms around that, and then we'll see what we can do on the Lido side of things as well. But hopefully next week we have a little bit more clarity on actually when we start meaningfully deploy those assets.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody else have anything they want to hit on? Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and dive. Did I drop this? No. Let me drop the stablecoin matrix, which is kind of a listing of like our different options that we're kind of evaluating, researching currently. Again, we're in that phase right now. Um, I know Starfire and Stubbs have been a big part of this, as well as Wes and Breeze. Stubbs, I know you've kind of hit the ground running with a couple of these. Anything that you want to highlight with regards to any of your research targets that would be meaningful to discuss here, or anything that really got you excited?
No, not yet. I ended up doing most of the maple stuff last day and a half, so nothing too exciting yet. But next week I'll have stuff to report.
Sounds good. And how about you, Starfire? Anything you want to comment on any of the protocols that you've researched? I know you've kind of made it known, at least your personal opinion is, really focusing on kind of the core blue chips. But outside of those, from an allocation standpoint, anything that you're kind of getting excited about or meaningful to report?
I'm excited about the Aave stablecoin. Um, I'm not sure what their timeline is and if it's too far out down the road, but I think they're going to do some really cool stuff with their stablecoin, and it's going to open up some interesting opportunities. But outside of that, like you said, my position really hasn't changed um, on the whole, but I'm always open to being persuaded one way or the other if new information is presented.
Got it. Very cool. Wes, Breeze, any of your research targets that you'd like to kind of talk about? No, Wes in particular, you have Euler that you've maybe want to bring up now as well.
Yeah. So I kind of focused just on Euler Finance. Think of it as a permissionless borrowing and lending platform that uses the Uniswap Oracle with a total weighted average price over the past half hour. Um, I am excited about it because if you supply assets onto that platform, you'll get whatever the interest and I think like Euler token or whatever. But if you're a liquidator, you also get liquidation incentives. So if we were to pursue that, there's potential to offer keepers who would use our liquidity pools a little extra bonus if they're going to be liquidating people on Euler Finance. I'm not sure if that's even technically feasible, but it's definitely something that looks possible. So that's kind of the where I'm at with there, and everything's kind of hyperlinked in the columns R and S. So if you're in that doc, just go over there and click on all those blue links.
Yeah, really great opportunity, Wes. Really appreciate you driving that forward. One question I had: do you have any information on like the amount of liquidations that they've kind of experienced? I'm just trying to think from like an integration standpoint, because obviously what we're doing with Beak Protocol is kind of on the liquidation side of things. So just curious, like what potential for an integration there would be on that, as well as some other things, if you have any information.
Yeah, great question. Um, I am not sure. I know. Yeah, I'm not sure at all. I'll go and ask some of the guys over there to track if they have any Dune dashboards to look at, or other information that can show the liquidations and the potential benefits for us. Yeah, great question, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that we actually we're kind of exploring with notional finance as well. I think when I had last looked, they had about $1.7 million in liquidations over a 9 month time frame, which is pretty small. So it wasn't worth our time necessarily at this point in time to kind of pursue that from an integration and dev resource perspective. But whenever there's liquidations, there's an integration opportunity for the most part, unless there's something mechanically that just I'm not aware of. So it's something for people to keep in mind as we go through this. I think some of these like big blue chips like Aave and Compound, like they have their own processes to handle that. That probably wouldn't require us, but for some of these other people, I think that there's definitely some prime opportunity there.
Yeah, just to bounce back on that, I found a Dune dashboard, and it does look like the liquidation values are pretty low. Um, so that's definitely something that's going to affect the uh, the time commitment there. Um, but yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a pretty interesting opportunity and just something we would probably want to get connected with, a little bit deeper, anyways. So I know Dietz and I are both in conversations with them and some DMs right now, and I know I have a call with them. Somebody else on Monday. We're just going to kind of touch base, see what we can kind of do together, and kind of explore it from there. And then hopefully we can kind of set up an AMA. I think they're about 12 hours ahead, at least the people we've been talking to. So it's a little difficult from an AMA perspective. But we'll see what we can do, and we'll keep you guys posted on how that shakes out. But I guess while I have you, Wes, any other targets that you've researched that you're kind of excited about?
Mute. No, I haven't researched other stablecoin deployments outside of Euler. Um, so nothing for me to report.
Okay. I might fork their protocol and call it Bueller. Just
You should.
I think the marketing would be way better on there. Okay, great. Breeze, anything you want to say? Here, no. Okay, cool. Well, I know I need to definitely get into doing the research as well and kind of pushing this forward. But again, I think where this is going to shake out is a lot of the allocation is going to be kind of with the blue chips anyway. So, a lot of this research will just be for longer term allocations and growth as well. So, sorry to hear you lost your voice, Breeze. I feel better. But again, more to come on this front. And if anybody has any desire to kind of get plugged into this process, just let us know. Let's see. Is there anything else on the agenda for today? No, I think that was basically it. So yeah, next week we'll talk. We'll have the beginning stages of talking about our plan around CVX. Hopefully the bank core proposal will be posted by then. The non-core asset will be posted by then. The budget labs budget request will be further along, and there's probably some more transparency we can have on that front. And hopefully the testing wallet will be up for formal vote by then. So a lot in the pipeline for sure. And but definitely want to make sure that nothing gets kind of snuck by. We want there to be discussion around everything. So if you have questions, concerns about really any of these things that are going to become kind of core part of our processes, infrastructure, especially as it relates to Treasury governance, now is kind of the time. So shoot me a DM. Please use these as forum, whatever you feel comfortable with to kind of make your voice known. But did anybody else have anything that they'd like to bring up or kind of put on the docket or the table for next week? Okay, cool. Well, again, I appreciate the time as always, guys, and we'll keep pushing things along. But if you ever want to get plugged in, please let me know.
Yeah, Matt, I'll just quickly plug. Next week, I'll come to the table with a lot of different stats that we have on CVX. A lot of that is available through some of the dashboards that Stubbs have made, but I'll come with some kind of takeaways from not just this last Alchemix deal, but historically what we've seen as well for us to come up with that short-term strategy next week.
Cool. Sounds like a plan. Excited to see that. Okay, great. Well, unless anybody else has any last second comments, I appreciate your time and go touch some grass. Bye, everybody.